Uh, I'm a
Chuck
PP.
Schumer, emphasizing he's the highest-ranking Jewish elected official in the United States, levied a blistering attack on everyone he holds responsible for the war in Gaza.
To blame only Israel for the deaths of Palestinians is unfair, one-sided, and often deliberately manipulative. And it ignores Hamas's role in this conflict.
The Senate Majority Leader blaming the terror group, as well as Israel's far right, as some of the biggest obstacles for a U.S.-backed two-state solution and taking aim at Palestinian leaders.
Quite frankly, I haven't heard enough Palestinian leaders express anguish about Hamas and other extreme elements of Palestinian society. I implore them to speak up now, even when it may be hardest.
That includes Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, clinging to office for nearly 20 years. Polling shows 90% of Palestinians want the 88-year-old to step down. But Schumer's most eye-raising comments were to Israel's prime minister.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has lost his way. He has been too willing to tolerate the civilian toll in Gaza, which is pushing support for Israel worldwide to historic lows. Israel cannot survive if it becomes a pariah.
Yes, לחצים.
The embattled prime minister is vowing to push away international pressures and carry on the offensive in Gaza, where airstrikes continued overnight.
Yeah, dude, it's lost its way. Israel totally on a different track record than totally on a different track than what it was on. Israel lost its way. The only prescient and important part of this is the only reason why he's saying this, which is that Israel is becoming a pariah. Okay? Also, 42 month subscribers being like making it seem like Mike has anything to do with fucking Logan Paul scheming. Stop being annoying, okay? I don't know if you're why is it that like the only interaction that so many leftist people have with any kind of like content or content creators is like never to just make jokes or whatever, but instead the only way to make jokes is by being like, "Hey, remember this other thing that someone else did? I'm going to associate you with that and I'm going to tell you that you're bad for it." It's like, come on, man. Just make like better jokes. Like Logan Paul being a part of Hezbollah is way funnier than like bringing up some actual fucking like real shit that his co-host has done. It's like the Fresh and Fit boys yelling at Ethan to be like, "Oh, remember when Hasan had a fucking guest on who said this?" And it's like, like, yeah, why are you coming in here with that same energy as a fan of mine, right? As a fan of mine, you're coming in here with that same energy of like, does Mike keeps a log of all of his homies' dick sizes. Why don't you talk about that? They've always been a pariah globally. Now they're a pariah to Americans. No. A company is selling the full-scale replica of the Dark Moon Greatsword from Elden Ring for $459. Not for me.
Night during the first week of Ramadan.
Netanyahu is wildly unpopular here in Israel. Remember, the October 7 attack happened on his watch, not to mention the kidnappings. And now Hamas is saying it's considering the release of those hostages in exchange for a ceasefire and up to 1,000 Palestinian prisoners. But so far, Israel says that is unrealistic. Tony?
Yeah, it is pretty lopsided. Chris Lissay for us in East Jerusalem. Chris, thank you very much. I want to linger for a second, guys, on the Schumer speech, because it's a lot more than just a headline about Netanyahu. He says a lot of the things that I can tell you American Jews are saying amongst themselves in text messages all day long. There's a full defense of Israel as a Jewish nation with Jewish history. There's a heaping of blame on Hamas for hiding behind civilians. And another key part, Netanyahu may be unpopular, but there's an endorsement here from Schumer of the war effort to eradicate Hamas, or at least eliminate them from any position of power, saying there can be no peace unless that happens. So people should really listen to the whole thing. If you want a window into what American Jews...
He might not be popular, but it's not like his replacement just won't be another flavor of Zionist. Yes, brother. This has nothing to do with Benjamin Netanyahu. This has everything to do with laying the blame and responsibility squarely on Benjamin Netanyahu's shoulders so that we can get back to business as fucking usual. Like we can get back to October 6th. Okay? Even though October 6 and October 5 and October 4 and every other fucking day of the goddamn year where Israel is just an apartheid state that is like brutal and violent to the Palestinians is what caused October 7. But like, this is just about trying to fix it on the back end, trying to fix the PR side. Felix Biederman, very famously, has talked about this quite a bit. He always says this, like, I've had this conversation with him personally, and he will always like repeat this, which I think is a very good point. He always says, liberal Zionism is an infinitely more effective way of doing propaganda to the West if you want to actually maintain the fucking apartheid regime, right? Liberal Zionists hate, like, the settlers, for example. They hate the settlers. They're always like, oh, these fucking dumbass settlers. They're all, like, religious. They're all fucking weirdos. They are all just, like, they look like they're Amish, and they're fucking living, like, Amish-style lifestyles. Like, this is, a lot of people will openly shit on settlers in Israel. They think they're fucking freeloaders, right? Like, there are many different ways that people talk about how the settlers in the West Bank are fucking gross. Because they are. They're religious nut jobs, and they are fucking gross, right? But the pragmatic reason for why liberal Zionists hate settlers that they try to describe to the rest of the Israeli society, okay, is, hey, dumbass, people in the Western world see these fucking freaks and they go, what the fuck is Israel doing? Do you understand? The optics of settlers and settlements is awful. Just like the optics of 30,000 dead women and children is untenable. It's awful. But Israel and Israeli society post-October 7 kicked its fascism into high gear and literally cannot comprehend this. They do not see it. That's why poll after poll shows the Jewish demographic of Israel supporting further bombing Gaza or bombing Gaza, you know, in the same exact pacing that has led to 30,000 fucking dead Palestinians. They are not thinking about this beyond bloodlust at this point. They're not thinking about the PR side of this. They're not thinking about the potential inevitable consequences of this with respect to the Western world consistently offering unconditional support to Israel as it maintains its apartheid regime. Bro, chill, lol. I don't think there's anything like, I don't know. Have I said anything that comes across as aggressive? Maybe. Yes, Israel is behaving post 9/11 America, doing post 9/11 America shit, except Israel is not America. Israel needs America. Okay? That's number one. Number two, the difference is that America has a lot of problems. Okay? America has a lot of issues. But I've said this time and time again, and this is a little spicy of a take, especially if you don't fully grasp how dire the situation is for the Palestinians. But and I've said this before, if Palestinian conditions right now resembled the existence and the conditions, the modern day contemporary conditions of black people in the United States of America in a white supremacist society, we would hail that as the greatest fucking move in the right direction of all time. Okay? And I stand on that. I stand by that. 100%. That would be an objective good if Palestinians tomorrow existed in a one singular Israeli state in the same way that black people exist in the United States of America. Okay? This would be objectively an unimaginable improvement on their living conditions. And that isn't to say that black people have it super easy in America. Not at all. Not by a long shot. If we're talking about averages, if we're talking about underfunded neighborhoods, then of course not. I'm simply using this as an example for you to understand how dire the situation is for the average Palestinian. I've said this before. Because I have a predominantly American audience, I always have to compare it to like American history and American contemporary politics in some ways. And I mean, there is no comparison in the Western world where you have like a mechanized death brigade melting your family members on a daily fucking basis. We have still in the United States of America, for example, slavery in our prison system. Our criminal justice system is basically a continuation of chattel slavery. It's not to the same degree. It's not to the same severity. Chattel slavery, much like the Holocaust, is a uniquely evil system of death and destruction. However, even with all of that, it's like comparatively to the Palestinian existence, like Palestinians living in the West Bank live in apartheid-like structures. It's worse than Jim Crow right now. Palestinian existence in the West Bank is akin to Jim Crow in the worst aspects of Jim Crow. Okay? I would say. Palestinians in Gaza are even worse off than that. Palestinian citizens of Israel exist in a structure that is like akin to Jim Crow in a better part of Jim Crow, I guess, in a less aggressive aspect of Jim Crow. Yeah.
Population.
Yeah, Chomsky has openly said that Israel's treatment of Palestinians is worse than the apartheid in South Africa. The reason why it's worse than the apartheid in South Africa is because they were aligned with apartheid South Africa, recognized apartheid South Africa's issues in terms of PR, and made sure that they didn't run into those same problems. Is there any validity to the theory that Netanyahu is extending the war effort because of the legal battles that await him? Yes. 100%. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of truth to that. But one must ask the question, how horny is the Israeli population for death and destruction that this is a benefit, that Ben doing this genocide actually saves him from additional legal scrutiny, despite having a historically low approval rating, a historically high disapproval rating. One must ask that question. Anyway. Dude, I got it. Okay, I got it. You're funny. Okay, you keep asking.
Lifelong supporter of Israel. It has become clear to me the Netanyahu coalition no longer fits the needs of Israel after October 7th. The world has changed radically since then, and the Israeli people are being stifled right now by a governing vision that is stuck in the past. Nobody expects Prime Minister Netanyahu to do the things that must be done to break the cycle of violence, to preserve Israel's credibility on the world stage, and to work towards a two-state solution. If he were to disavow Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and kick them out of his governing coalition, that would be a real meaningful step forward.
Please stop comparing Palestinians to black people's struggle. They are not the same, and Hasan is not the person that should be making the comparison, even if they were. Unless you're black, I don't really care your opinion on it. DM me, mister, if you want to continue further. I'm not trying to distract. Yeah, bro. The reason why I feel comfortable making these comparisons, for the record, the reason why I feel comfortable, by the way, I respect this person. Don't yell at this person. I respect them for being kind and literally saying, like, I don't want to distract further, okay? don't immediately be fucking annoying. This person, I think, is not like a bad guy or a debate pervert or a fucking weirdo. I think this is a person who I just simply have a disagreement on this issue with. And as it is my job to utilize this as an opportunity for education, I would present the likes of Nelson Mandela that has made this comparison himself. I would utilize the sentiments expressed by Malcolm X on the Palestinian struggle. I would utilize the historical, and maybe, and I'm gonna be very nice here. First of all, kind. He's saying that you can't have an opinion on a subject because of a specific color of skin. Yeah, that's just radlib bullshit. Okay, but especially as it pertains to black issues, it is a totally understandable way to approach the subject matter, because in a white supremacist society, you got black people operating and moving in ways like white supremacists. Of course, the expectation is going to be that like any fucking white guy is going to be probably racist and out of touch. I don't think I am, but I do think that it's an understandable edge to have. It's a defensive posture. Anyway, and here's the other thing I was going to say. I don't think this person is maybe familiar with more radical black activists and organizers and what they have done personally, including but not limited to working alongside the PFLP and DFLP, like quite literally seeing armed resistance against a white supremacist state as a dual struggle with the Palestinian oppression and the Palestinian armed resistance against the Israeli state. So, yeah, I think that's probably the reason why this comparison comes across like it's just like a ridiculous one or something. It is in no way to minimize the oppression and cruelty that black people have experienced. I just don't think you can probably handle it with the sensitivity that needs to be handled. Bring on a black speaker and let them make the case. Yeah, okay. I took the time out and I tried to explain to you what the historical comparisons are. If you're still fucking running this line, it's like, all right, dude, man, come on. Like, be a little bit more charitable, okay? I appreciate you, Hasan. Like, yeah, okay, well, if you appreciate me, be a little bit more charitable, okay? Come on. I would say this is something that I'm fairly well read on. And as it pertains to black issues, like, it's definitely something that I am trying to be as careful as possible when talking about. I'm not even hitting you with the, oh, dude, white people can't speak on black issues. Like, what the fuck? That's racist. Like, I'm not doing any of that dumb shit. I totally get it. I get why people have this kind of fear. Anyway. Yeah, Mark Lamont Hill was just on. He makes more of these distinctions on his YouTube than Malcolm X.
Forward. But regrettably, there's no reason to believe Prime Minister Netanyahu would do that. He won't disavow Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in their calls for Israelis to drive Palestinians out of Gaza and the West Bank. He won't commit to a military operation in Rafah that prioritizes protecting civilian life. He won't engage responsibly in discussions about a day-after plan for Gaza and a longer-term pathway to peace. Hamas and the Palestinians who support and tolerate their evil ways, radical right-wing Israelis in government and society, President Abbas, Prime Minister Netanyahu. These are the four obstacles to peace. And if we fail to overcome them, then Israel and the West Bank and Gaza will be trapped in the same violent state of affairs they've experienced for the last 75 years. These obstacles are not the same in their culpability for the present state of affairs, but arguing over which is the worst stymies our ability to achieve peace. Given the complexity and gravity of this undertaking, many different groups have a responsibility to see it through. The Palestinian people must reject Hamas and the extremism in their midst. They know better than anybody how Hamas has used them as pawns, how Hamas has tortured and punished Palestinians who seek peace. Quite frankly, I haven't heard enough Palestinian leaders express anguish about Hamas and other extreme elements of Palestine.
Yeah, I wonder why, dude. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I can't hear enough movement from the Palestinian crowd against Hamas. Yeah, dumbass. It's because Hamas isn't doing the fucking genocide. It's Israel. As a matter of fact, Hamas is the people protecting them. Hamas is the only entity that is successfully making the occupation costly. That's it. Ain't nobody else is doing that. And that's precisely why their popularity has increased. It is ridiculous to be like, wow, these genocidal, these people that are currently being genocided, why are they not saying that the only militant resistance against the genocidal Israeli regime is actually bad? I love that this fucking bullshit middle of the ground ass speech, by the way, is what people make, is what people delude themselves into thinking is like radical. Both the liberals who want to make it seem like this is a major change, and there is a real tonal shift here. It signals something that I've told you since day one, by the way, which is that this is their exit ramp. This is their pressure valve. They're releasing it so that they can go back to like business as usual apartheid defense, right? As long as we can get back to the good old fucking days of October 6th, I can't find it, but you predicted they would do this months ago. You said they would change the narrative from it's all Hamas to blaming Netanyahu when it gets too hard for them to cover up the atrocities in Palestine being done to Israel. Yes, I did say that. This is their exit ramp. The fact that they didn't arrive at this exit ramp like 2 weeks in is insane. But also, liberals will now jerk this off as though like this is a brave stance that Chucky boy's hitting here, and the ultra Zionists will go froth out of the fucking mouth like screaming from the rooftops about how anti-Semitic Chuck is and how Chuck should concern himself with his own affairs. You know, some shit like that. It's crazy.
Palestinian society. I implore them to speak up now, even when it may be hardest, because that is the only true way to honor the lives of all those lost, by transcending the enmity and bloodshed and working together in good faith for a better future. Once Hamas is deprived of power, the Palestinians will be much freer to choose a government they want and deserve. With the prospect of a real two-state solution on the table, and for the first time, genuine statehood for the Palestinian people, I believe they will be far more likely to support more mainstream leaders committed to peace. I think the same is true for the Israeli people. Call me an optimist, but I believe that if the Israeli public is presented with a path to a two-state solution that offers a chance at lasting peace and coexistence, then most mainstream Israelis will moderate their views and support it. Part of that moderation must include rejecting right-wing zealots like Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and the extremist Israeli settlers in the West Bank. These people do not represent a majority of the Israeli public.
I'm sorry. Dude, yeah, see? Liberal Zionism, dude, is so funny. No, guys, you don't understand. Benjamin Netanyahu is only continuing this ethnic cleansing campaign to basically stay alive and not not fall apart and withstand legal scrutiny as soon as he's like voted out of office. Don't ask the question how the continued ethnic cleansing campaign is keeping him in office, though. Because if you ask that question, then you have to come to the recognition that, like, oh, the people on the ground, the Israeli society do want this, actually. That's weird. Like, to act like this war cabinet is not following on the agenda and the interests of the broadest subsect of the Israeli Jewish demographic, the population of Israeli Jews who participate in these polls, which we can fucking see, by the way. All right. It's ridiculous. You can see it. You see it with your own two eyes. The recognition that Benjamin Netanyahu is utilizing this fucking ethnic cleansing campaign to stay alive, to stay afloat, comes with the understanding that this is a popular thing that he is doing. They talk about Israel like they do about cops, just a few of them, not a systemic issue. Yeah. The bad apples narrative is exactly done here to whitewash Israel's crimes. And the entire, like, I want to stress this. I want to make this very clear. I've been saying this since October 8th, okay? I've been saying this basically since October 8th. I've said it for 10 years now at this point, okay? That liberal Zionism is better PR for the same apartheid state. Okay? That's the only thing. Israel needs to continue doing good PR so that they can rely on Western support, Western permission to keep maintaining its apartheid state. And liberal Zionism helps Israel significantly more than the unhinged, unwashed, absolutely psychopathic fucking settlers. Okay? Liberal Zionists are right on that front when they say this looks bad. Fuck these guys. This looks really fucking bad. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the apartheid state is the same. And Flip Dingo, who said, Hamas equals bad. Bad for Palestine. Tell me how the war wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Hamas. Why do you support Hamas, who are a terrible, horrible organization? Great question. Okay? Asking me why I support Hamas, who's a terrible organization, after 5 months of the Palestinian population withstanding ethnic cleansing, is like saying, why do you support the Black Panther organization? They're the bad guys. They are the bad guys. Okay? It's like asking, I can't believe you would be on the side of George Floyd. After all, he has a criminal background, a criminal history. I can't believe I'm going to use this, but in the words of Dave Chappelle, Israel made Hamas the good guys in this situation. Israel chose Hamas, both literally and also figuratively. Okay? That's it. I support the ANC in South Africa and the South African apartheid. I support the FLN in Algeria. I support the IRA in Ireland. I support people all around the world trying to break free in their emancipatory struggles. Because I understand that it is very human to want freedom. It is very human to no longer be living under the oppressive thumb of an apartheid regime. That's it. We've talked about the theories, and also we've talked about the historical significance, or we've talked about this theory in practice throughout history, right? The colonizing entity sets the standard for violence. That's it. And if you know anything about Palestinian resistance, if you are familiar with the history at all, you will recognize that Palestinian resistance has taken many forms throughout history. And this current October 7 most violent form of Palestinian resistance is directly a consequence of Israel's violence every single day in its apartheid regime. Because a supremacist ethno-state, apartheid state, requires a shit ton of violence in its daily maintenance. Just because that kind of violence is normalized or cast aside does not change the reality of said violence, especially in the way that people receive it. So consistently crying about terrorism as an act of resistance is not going to work when even the most reactionary people have to reckon with 25,000 dead women and children. Israel has killed more than 25,000 women and children. No matter who we are talking to, no matter how hog-like they might be, when you look at the past 5 months and Israel's actions in the past 5 months, damn near every person that looks at that from the outside who is not incredibly invested in the Zionist project is going to look at that and say, it's a bit much for me. That's the least you can expect from people. And that is precisely what's happening right now. And that is precisely why these dumbass Democrats are finally releasing the pressure valve and being like, fuck Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu is the reason why. Benjamin Netanyahu is the reason why this is happening. It is a lie. Benjamin Netanyahu is simply acting out on the desires of the broadest subsects of the Israeli population. You said something similar a while back, saying that the Houthis, who you don't politically agree with, is still a force against an oppressor, and the only way moving forward in social issues is by taking care of the one who is oppressing everybody in a particular region, regardless of their race or gender or sexual orientation. Yes. You are more familiar with the history here than I. Has a Senate party leader or U.S. president ever called for the ouster of an Israeli PM before? Secretly, Bill Clinton has, very famously, actually. I don't know if he openly called for it, but I know that they were doing that for sure. HW, I think, as well. HW openly campaigned. That too. Netanyahu in 2001 saying their plan they've executed for the past 6 months. Yeah, I mean here. This is we've. No, it's not only 2% of Israelis that believe they've gone too far. It's 2% of Israeli Jews that believe they've gone too far, and that is the 2% of Israeli Jews that are Israeli leftists. Because there's a 20% in the Israeli society that are designated as Arabs by the Israeli authorities. And they are, of course, Palestinian citizens of Israel, the Arab Muslims and the Arab Christians that are always going to be saying, this is too far. What the fuck? Isn't that what Chuck Schumer is saying? He's calling those people to reject right-wing Zionist ideologies. Chuck Schumer is presenting the situation. I'll give you an American example. Chuck Schumer is presenting a situation that is clear-cut, definitionally right in front of our eyes, as though it is actually more complicated than it actually is. The example I will use is this. The Democratic Party consistently says, we need a strong Republican Party. We need the old Republican Party, not this MAGA Republican Party. Why do I always yell at that? Why do I always yell when Nancy Pelosi comes out of the gate swinging for that shit? Because that's not real. You're just doing PR for the Republican Party. It's all you're doing. Because everyone here knows that there is no Republican Party that exists in the minds of Nancy Pelosi. It is a pure fantasy. And that is a pure fantasy that the Republican Party should be presenting, not the Democratic Party. So this is exactly what Chuck Schumer is doing here, making it seem as though liberal Zionists and further right-wing Zionists are not completely aligned on the ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza, when they objectively are, as far as the Israeli polling shows. Okay, that's number one. And number two, he's saying this with a secondary purpose, which is that as long as we can get back to like a Benny Gantz-led coalition, a war cabinet that Benny Gantz puts together, which, by the way, we don't even know if they have the votes to be able to do that, by the way, in the Knesset. Just make no mistake, Benjamin Netanyahu did not bring the Smotriches and the Ben-Gvirs to his cabinet on his own. He would have loved to have the majority on his own, but he couldn't. That's precisely why he went further and further right. So we don't know what that looks like right now. We do not know if there is a more liberal cabinet that they could put together. However, liberal Zionism and right-wing ultra-Zionism, ultra-nationalist Zionism is still two sides of the same fascist coin. Because liberal Zionism also wants to maintain an apartheid regime, or at the very least is not offended by the existence of an apartheid regime. And that's precisely the reason why on October 7, you saw liberal Zionists go incredibly right-wing at the tip of a fucking hat. That's it. So this is purely a PR point. A PR point that they should have arrived at months ago, by the way. The fact that it took them this long is insane. But just understand that this is just simply reframing the narrative and massaging Israel's genocidal actions by saying, oh, it's all the responsibility of Benjamin Netanyahu and the right-wing shitheads that he has in his cabinet. You will start hearing this more and more from the very same people that you heard from months ago talking about how Arabs are fucking dogs and bloodthirsty monsters and rapist barbarians, marauders that must be put to heel, must be destroyed. Now they'll turn around and they'll talk about like they didn't say all of those things, like they didn't fucking salivate at the prospect of denying food, denying aid, denying electricity, denying water to 2 million Palestinians that the defense minister Yoav Gallant called human animals. Look at J Street's posture after 10-7, basically indistinguishable. Yes, that's a great take. J Street is the liberal Zionist organization that is supposed to counter AIPAC. AIPAC is right-wing as fuck. AIPAC is insanely right-wing, like domestic policy-wise, AIPAC is very right-wing. J Street is supposed to be left-wing. It is not anti-Zionist, although there are people who are now anti-Zionist that used to work with J Street back in the day. Okay, it's a much better organization than AIPAC. After October 7, AIPAC came out and said any Democrat that does not stand with Israel unconditionally, we are going to go after. If you recall, that's what J Street said. J Street is supposed to be liberal as fuck. J Street is supposed to be a liberal. J Street is supposed to be a liberal institution. Yeah, Noah Colvin used to work there as well. And people immediately went back, like former J Street operatives and people that worked there, like went back and they fucking yelled at the leadership. And then they quickly changed their narrative, for the record. But it was very telling. It was very telling that even J Street, which is supposed to be the counter force to AIPAC, these are two different lobbying groups specifically designed to defend Israel. I used to also be in J Street. Lol, yeah, there's plenty of there are plenty of people who worked with J Street or were on J Street or were like funders of J Street that go from like liberal Zionism to anti-Zionism. It's like, but I would say that I think, you know, J Street is the perfect demonstration of like liberal Zionism with all of its limitations, ideological limitations, its limitations in you know, or at least like its inconsistency between practice and theory. Certainly infinitely better than AIPAC, because AIPAC is like comic book villain shit, right? AIPAC is like responsible for 35 different states having like anti-boycott, divestment, and sanctions laws that are in direct violation of America's First Amendment. You know, all of these red states that love talking about freedom of speech when it comes to being able to say the N-word as a white guy, that literally have laws where if you want to be a public school teacher in the state of Texas, you got to fucking sign a thing that says you will never protest the state of Israel. The fuck are we doing? You know what I mean? AIPAC wrote that. AIPAC wrote that legislation. Anyway, having said that, it is important to understand J Street being the counterbalance, the liberal Zionist institution that is against AIPAC and AIPAC's like reactionary influence. Yes, join Jewish Voice for Peace. Very good. You're absolutely right. Even J Street was very, very right-wing and very reactionary in the immediate aftermath of October 7. They had to be dialed back. Okay? So, the reason why I'm describing all of this is because I want you to understand the glaring, obvious shortcomings of liberal Zionism and the moral bankruptcy that liberal Zionism demonstrates, because it's at direct odds with the first part of it, liberalism, right? It is an oxymoronic take. Zionism being a fascist supremacist ideology makes it as silly as saying, I'm a liberal fascist. If Zionism is a project dedicated to creating a Jewish supremacist, Jewish majority ethno-state built on top of an indigenous population that is brutally oppressed, and it's just straight up an ethno-nationalist fascist ideology, it's like saying, yeah, I'm a liberal fascist. Ridiculous. Almost as ridiculous as thinking that you're not going to see a 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour. You are, unless you're subscribed. For $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime, by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Mike Malag is calling me. Hold on. Yo, I'm live. Yo, I'm live right now. All right. Well, wait, what?
Yup, quick cup of coffee with Alex Jones and Candace Owens just to get some quick feedback on a couple topics, and then I'll bring that intel live to your show at 2 p.m.
Hell yeah. For those of you who couldn't hear him, he said he's having a quick cup of coffee with Candace Owens and Alex Jones, and he's going to bring that as feedback. All right. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do a Ask Me Anything when you get here, like any kind of like political questions you have, anything like that, and we're gonna duke it out with some people online. So get excited.
Debate? We're doing debates?
I mean, not really, but you know, whatever you're comfortable with, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I've been having a rough week on mine, so I'm excited for some.
All right. Hell yeah.
All right, I'll see you soon.
All right, bye.
All right.
I love Mike, dude. He's the fucking man. Tell Clandis to come on. No, he's joking. He's not actually hanging out with Candace Owens and fucking Clandis Owens and fucking Alex Jones. Dem pivot taking this long signals the U.S.'s deep Islamophobia and how society values the lives of Palestinians and Arabs in general. 100% true, Yuvenda. Yeah.
Yet under Prime Minister Netanyahu's watch, they have had far too much influence. All sides must reject from river to the sea thinking, and I believe they will if the prospects for peace and a two-state solution are real. Beyond the Israeli and Palestinian people and their leaders, there are others who bear a serious responsibility to work towards a two-state solution. Without them, it cannot succeed. Middle Eastern powers, like Saudi Arabia, the United
That's so funny. Yeah, dude. You made me like Mike. I think Mike is a person worthy of charitability. I will always ride for a dude that has overcome addiction, okay? Always. I don't think a lot of you who have ever had to deal with anything like that understand how fucking difficult that lifelong struggle is, okay? I will always ride for dudes no matter what happens. Like, it's the same principle behind why I love Jeff as well. Like, if you've ever gone to prison or if you've ever had like deep addictions that you've been able to overcome, I will consider that the beacon of rehabilitation, like the maximum best thing you can fucking do. With the exception of Michael Pillow, yes. No such thing as a former addict. Exactly. No, it's right. It's literally a lifelong struggle. It creeps in on you every fucking day. Anyway, heroin here. I'm on methadone for 3 years now, but I struggle to see the accomplishment. No, it's phenomenal. Bro almost compared Zyn to heroin addiction. Wait, what? No, I would never do that. Even though I do think cigarette addiction is like probably, I think it's worse than, like as someone who struggled with alcoholism and also cigarettes, I would say cigarette is probably worse than alcohol. Of course, it's not going to be fucking heroin. That's ridiculous. But I can't speak on heroin personally because I've never been addicted to heroin. But yeah. Nicotine addiction in general. Well, I mean, as someone who has a fucking shit ton of Zyn here, I would say that nicotine addiction is not the same as like as tobacco addiction. Nicotine technically is the addictive chemical, and it is very addictive, and it feels awesome, and I love it, and I'm still addicted to nicotine. But at least it's like so much easier to manage than and not nowhere near as damaging as fucking alcohol or tobacco in general. Tobacco is so cancerous. So anyway, Kaya's on the floor. Good call. Kaya, place. Yes, baby. Good girl. Good place. Thank you, Chatter. Have you tried Zins? Dude, I'm literally cracking a cold one right now. I am a fucking Zinfidel, okay? I am a People's History of the United States Howard Zinn. Do you understand me? No, it's good that you guys are snitching on Kaya because she shouldn't be on the floor. It's bad for her elbows. Anyway.
United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Jordan, other mainstream Arab states can have immense power and influence with the Palestinians. Working with the United States, they must responsibly deploy their clout, their money, and their diplomacy to support a new demilitarized Palestinian state that rejects terror and violence. I believe they have the leverage to do this with the support of the majority of the Palestinian people who want what any other people want: peace, security, prosperity. I believe there is enough strength in the Arab world to get President Abbas to step down and to support a gradual succession plan for responsible Palestinian leaders to take his place. Hamas has so wrecked society in Gaza that it will take outside involvement of Arab countries to help rebuild something better and more sustainable. It may take some time to identify such leaders, but with the considerable resources of the Arab world backing them, I believe these leaders can and will emerge, knowing that they have support. The outlines of a deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel that were reported before October 7th still make a great deal of sense and can be the catalyst for the creation of a viable Palestinian state. Saudi Arabia and other Arab nations should continue to pursue normalization with Israel, and this should be the foundation of a grand bargain in the Middle East that will finally make meaningful Palestinian statehood a reality. For our part, the United States, the world superpower, must work together with our allies to bring our immense diplomatic and financial power to bear on this situation. We can be a partner to a grand bargain in the Middle East by deepening our relationship with the Saudis and other Arab nations to induce them to make a deal, but only if they actively guide Palestinians to a more peaceful future. On the Israeli side, the U.S. government should demand that Israel conduct itself with a future two-state solution in mind. We should not be forced into a position of unequivocally supporting the actions of an Israeli government that include bigots who reject the idea of a Palestinian state. Israel is a democracy.
This is so funny. It's so funny that he's literally begging. He's basically being like, dude, come on, please get the fuck back to like a position that is defensible. You fucking monstrous pieces of shit. Get back to a position, because if you don't, you're gonna lose literally the entirety of the Western world, and you will never be able to have Israel ever again.
5 months into this conflict, it is clear that Israelis need to take stock of the situation and ask, must we change course? At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel, at a time when so many Israelis have lost their confidence in the vision and direction of their government. I also believe a majority of the Israeli public will recognize the need for change, and I believe that holding a new election, once the war starts to wind down, would give Israelis an opportunity to express their vision for the post-war future. Of course, the United States cannot dictate the outcome of an election, nor should we try. That is for the Israeli public to decide, a public that I believe understands better than anybody that Israel cannot hope to succeed as a pariah opposed by the rest of the world. As a democracy,
Since you started your pouch journey, I ordered my pouches through a company called Snooze Me, and they have international flavors. Okay. Jesus Christ, that's a long-ass message.
Israel has the right to choose its own leaders, and we should let the chips fall where they may. But the important thing is that Israelis are given a choice. There needs to be a fresh debate about the future of Israel after October 7th. In my opinion, that is best accomplished by holding an election. Now, if Prime Minister Netanyahu's current coalition remains in power after the war begins to wind down and continues to pursue dangerous and inflammatory policies that test existing U.S. standards for assistance, then the United States...
Yeah, it's just testing U.S. standards for... It's just testing U.S. standards. He's based, epic, elderly, handsome, leftist, Jewish, and a senator. I didn't say his name, but you thought of him. Chuck Schumer. That's right. Yeah. The focus is always on Israel and not the suffering of Palestinians. Well, I mean, dude, come on. That part does make sense for Chuck fucking Schumer, okay? Chuck Schumer was literally against Obama when he was pro Benjamin Netanyahu, and Benjamin Netanyahu was fucking over Barack Obama. Chuck Schumer was not fond of the Iran denuclearization agreement, which was Barack Obama's signature foreign policy accomplishment. Of course, he is going to take this approach and only talk about Israel, especially because, like, the reality of the matter is you can't dictate what the Palestinians do in terms of their own liberation, but you can dictate Israel, which is the side that we have been funding and facilitating. So, no, I am in favor of talking about Israel and Israel only if we're talking about it in Congress. Okay? Because, like, the reality is, yeah, a picture with Schumer is literally AIPAC donor reward level. Wait, really? I don't know if you're... No shot. I don't think he will, like, openly align with AIPAC that aggressively, because AIPAC is, like, known in... It is? Oh, my God. He's more right-wing than I thought. Okay, never mind. Like, more right-wing on the openly supporting AIPAC. AIPAC is known, by the way, make no mistake. Every single person knows. Every single person in the Hill knows that AIPAC is a right-wing, and by right-wing, I don't mean like fascist Israel, pro-Israel right-wing. I mean like domestic policy in the United States of America right-wing. Okay? I'm talking defenders of the American Republican Party. Everyone knows this. It's not even like this is not like a controversial thing. AIPAC is obviously a foreign lobby for a foreign nation that does not have foreign lobby status. And it's controversial to say that Israel is a foreign lobby, even though it literally is. It's fucking ridiculous. AIPAC is a foreign lobby that is not regarded as a foreign lobby. Because the claim is, well, these are Americans who are, you know, funding AIPAC and their interests. I mean, yeah, they will go. Of course, Democrats go to the AIPAC conference. That's not. Of course they do. Of course they go to the AIPAC conference. I didn't realize that. I did not realize that there's a difference between going to the AIPAC conference, every top Democrat has, versus AIPAC donor walls having like take a photo with Chuck Schumer as like a reward. Like, I feel like that's a little bit more insane than speaking at the AIPAC conference, which every Democrat has. Anyway, this level of AIPAC infusion in our government is high-key terrifying. Oh, yeah, 100%. One argument I haven't heard you mention is that if the U.S. keeps this up and Palestine takes over or Israel fails to consume Gaza, it will forever be lost to America as a satellite state. Would you agree with this, or am I off base? No, that is something that I've brought up. Every single time I talk about like the differences within the State Department about like post-October 7, there was a rift in the American State Department. There were people who were like permanent loyalists who were like, no, Israel has to do whatever the fuck it wants to, the Brandon camp. And then there were people who were more realistic and looking at this with a long-term solution in mind, or looking at the long-term consequences. And the people that have the long-term consequences in mind, understandably, we're like, we don't really care about fucking dead children, obviously, but we do care about, obviously, America maintaining Israel in the way that it does as a forward operating base. Like, they need Israel to fucking exist. That's why, because of Israel's geopolitical importance as like America's, military country in the middle of this fucking region that we want to control somehow, right? They recognize that Israel's actions would cause Israel's inevitable demise, which is precisely why I'm shocked that they didn't hit. I'm shocked that they didn't hit the liberal Zionist exit ramp earlier. It's kind of wild. AIPAC-funded Dems propose keeping Congress in the dark on Israel aid. Murray and Schumer, sponsors of the proposal, have both received hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign funding from AIPAC and other pro-Israel donors. Is it too late to hit the exit ramp? First of all, one thing that you have to understand is that that exit ramp is still business as usual for America. Like, the exit ramp that Chuck Schumer is hitting right now is actually still beneficial for America's genocidal conquest and imperialist endeavors in the region. Like, the only reason why I'm aligned with it at this stage is because it at least like stops the bleeding for a little bit. Okay? And I would rather do a ceasefire and stop the bleeding now than not stop the ceasefire and continue the bleeding until it's like until there's like 60,000 dead Palestinian women and children. You know what I mean? I don't want that. I want to stop the bloodshed. Bro, how the fuck is chat going after me for Trump won't be better than Biden? Because Trump is right now not in power. And I think bringing up like this person saying, I hope Trump wins, he will save Palestine, is wrong. Yeah, he is. He can hear us. He will save us. Like, that person is wrong. This person is objectively wrong. Anyone that thinks that Trump would be better on Israel is completely oblivious to what Trump did that led to October 7. Either they're wrong or they're just memeing and you're taking them seriously. But consistently bringing up Trump to be like, oh yeah, he would be worse than Biden at a time when like Biden is the president and has almost complete power to greatly reduce Israel's atrocious actions is ridiculous. You're simply trying to resort back to the two-party duopoly structure to be like, well, you know, Trump would be even worse.
States will have no choice.
Explain what Trump did to lead up to the October. Yes. Donald Trump permanently recognized annexed territory in Golan Heights, which is actually Syrian land that Israel is illegally occupying and annexing. Donald Trump moved the embassy in an incredibly controversial move to Jerusalem. He moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, also recognizing further illegal occupation in Jerusalem as a permanent as a permanent part of Israel. Okay. Obviously, before Donald Trump, America was doing horrifying things in Israel still, because Israel was still an apartheid state and was only maintaining that apartheid state with American weaponry. Barack Obama, who was critical of Israel and is seen as like the biggest Jew hater by the ultra-Zionists, gave $38 billion in aid over the course of 10 fucking years to Israel in replenishing its Iron Dome capacity, on top of like many other lethal aid that we gave to Israel in that time frame. Okay. But last but not least, one of the worst aspects of what Donald Trump did, one of the worst aspects of Donald Trump's regime was the Abraham Accords. Every single Gulf state in that area is already a vassal state for the United States or a client state for the United States. But trying to normalize relations with Israel without demanding concessions from Israel as it pertains to the existence of Palestinians was objectively a horrible, horrible strategy. Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, continued along that strategy when he went to the United Nations and showed a map that did not even have Gaza, the Gaza Strip, in said map when talking about the phenomenal foreign policy accomplishments of Israel. Only a week prior, I think, like literally a couple weeks before October 7, he went and did that. Writing out Palestinians from the equation as you are oppressing 5 million of them in both Gaza and also occupied territories in the West Bank illegally in your apartheid structure is unimaginable. Of course, these people are going to turn around and go, no, you can't do that actually without incurring a cost. That's what October 7's strategic goals were. Making the occupation costly. Saying to everyone, no, we are still here, actually. You can't keep fucking killing us slowly and quietly and expect us to not do anything about it. That's it. So Donald Trump, in many ways, is directly responsible. The Trump administration is directly responsible for October 7 in the same ways that Netanyahu is directly responsible for October 7. Everything that has happened post-October 7, however, directly in the hands of Joseph Robinette Biden. I would go so far as to even say that not reverting back Trumpian policies on Israel leading up to October 7 also lays the responsibility in the hands of Joe Biden's administration as well. You will never understand this if you are so invested in the narrative that like Arabs are barbarians, Muslims are fundamentalist across the board and bloodthirsty and rapist monsters that simply just want to kill Jewish people. You will never understand the rationale behind the most desperate act that one can engage in. You won't understand it. People that do things like that feel like they have nothing else. That's why they can do that. Personally, I never have. I just think about endorsing the destruction we all deserve to suffer equally under Trump. If that means voters don't vote for Biden, but also don't vote for Trump, and Trump wins, then it's Biden's fault. Voting for the lesser evil is still choosing one evil over the other. Do you know where I can find resources in keeping my lights almost growing and participating or local mutual aid? No. Anyway, let's continue.
But to play a more active role in shaping Israeli policy by using our leverage to change the present course. The United States' bond with Israel is unbreakable. But if extremists continue to...
Did Hamas target army posts and officials on October 7th? Yes. And they did. And yes, they were very successful. Of course. That was the broad majority of the targets were military posts. Specifically a surveillance outpost in the Gaza envelope.
Unduly influence Israeli policy, then the administration should use the tools at its disposal to make sure our support for Israel is aligned with our broader goal of achieving long-term peace and stability in the region. I believe this would make a lasting two-state solution more likely. Now, I know that there are many on both sides who question how we can discuss peace at a moment like this. So many Gazans are displaced from their homes and struggling to meet their most basic needs. Many are still burying and mourning their dead. Entire families have been wiped out. In Israel, everyone knows someone who was killed on October 7th. So many Israelis feel that people around the world have no respect for the grief and rage unleashed by Hamas's vicious attack. So, is there real hope for peace and a two-state solution? In the face of this atrocity, who could blame even the most hopeful among us for hardening their hearts, for giving up on the possibility of peace, for giving in to the hate? I seek my inspiration in the example of leaders who've come before us and worked for peace in the face of extreme circumstances.
This is one of the people that unanimously voted to give Israel more weapons, just making sure, yes. And also continuing to give aid to Israel without informing Congress. Like, specifically wanted to do what Biden was trying to do, which was give Israel lethal aid without congressional approval. So he is like He is a major dick rider of Israel, like aggro.
Some of Israel's greatest warriors and security experts have been staunch advocates for peace because they understand better than anybody that it's essential to Israel's security. David Ben-Gurion, Yitzhak Rabin, Ehud Barak, all of them sought peace with the Palestinians. On the Palestinian side, we don't have to look very far back to see a model of responsible leadership, Salam Fayyad, the former prime minister of the Palestinian Authority, who was clear in his condemnation of violence against the Israelis. And for the Arab leaders of today, may they find inspiration in Anwar el-Sadat of Egypt and King Hussein of Jordan, who had the courage and vision to seek peace with Israel. Before October 7th, things were moving in the right direction.
No, they weren't. It was, once again, October 6th report comes to mind, the Euromed report, stating, under no uncertain terms, by the way, very clearly, very fucking clearly, that 2023 was the deadliest year so far under the Israeli apartheid regime for Palestinian children. Israel had no interest in moving in the right direction. This is a defense of Donald Trump's foreign policy, for the record. If you are to say that Israel is moving in the right direction, you are basically defending Donald Trump's actions. It's ridiculous. All of the names he mentioned literally went to war and killed Palestinians. Ehud Barak literally personally led the attack on Beirut in the 80s. How are these people being mentioned as peacemakers? Because Ehud Barak, Jeffrey Epstein's bestie, by the way, just throwing that out there, famously pictured outside of Jeffrey Epstein's rape palace in New York in 2016. That Ehud Barak is seen as like a liberal Zionist moving in the right direction, trying to do peace. They are doing the lesser evil voting. It's kind of funny and I guess somewhat expected that of course the Democrats going to go on stage and do the lesser evil voting argument in an apartheid ethno state. Like, yeah. It should come as no surprise that the Democrats who love the lesser evil argument are doing that.
The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia both were on the path to normalization with Israel and with conditions that would greatly benefit the lives of the Palestinian people. Many believe that Iran motivated Hamas to disrupt this process. And indeed, there have been setbacks since October 7th.
Yeah, there's almost 100,000 American passport holders that are currently illegally settling in the West Bank. If we cared about liberal Zionism, if we actually were honest about like our interest in liberal Zionism, or if liberal Zionism was honest about, trying to restrict some of the more bloodthirsty and very glaringly obvious religious zealotry-backed actions that the Israeli state openly defends and promotes, like settler expansion in the West Bank, we would literally take away their citizenship. We would jail them when they came back to the United States of America. We would do that.
But recent talks between Arab and American leaders suggest the desire is stronger than ever now to find a path forward. Arab leaders cannot lose their stomachs for peace now at this critical inflection point.
I really don't understand that many people believe Hamas is motivated by Iran. Yeah, that's a fucking bullshit narrative that goes against what their own State Department says, by the way. October 7 was not planned out with the Iranian government. The fact that the Iranian government did not move after October 7, when Palestinians were being fucking genocided, and even Hezbollah openly left the Palestinians out to dry, other than taking pot shots on northern Israeli territory, is a direct result. is a direct example of this fundamental fact that that the American government and the Israeli government both acknowledged, alongside the Iranian leadership as well, saying that they had nothing to do with October 7. Obviously, they have a lot to do with October 7 in the sense that, like, they were training the Nukba, they were training, the Hamas special forces, they were, funding and giving arms to Palestinian resistance groups. That part is, that is a consistent thing that Iran has done. But October 7 as a military operation was directly conducted by the Palestinian resistance groups altogether, without Iranian intervention or without Iranian support, even beyond the regular support that the Iranian administrations have offered the Palestinians.
They must continue to pursue the path to normalization with Israel, and the U.S. should use all of its power to influence and bring them to the table and make them cooperate constructively. If my speaking out today has any effect, it will probably have greater influence on the Israeli and Jewish side of things. But if this conflict is to be resolved, we need comparable Palestinian and Arab leaders to also speak responsibly to their people about the path forward to peace. Now is the time for courageous leadership. After Israelis and Palestinians have experienced so much horror and loss of life, to not have something meaningful come out of this war would be doubly tragic. History will look back on what we do here. Are we prepared together to have the courage to make an all-out push to bring about peace once and for all? To bring to this conflict what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called the fierce urgency of now, to end the cycles of tragedy and of pain. I've always said that when her...
Dude, white boys love busting out MLK quotes. You know what I'm saying? They love busting out MLK quotes.
Horrific things happen, some turn inwards, and let their grief consume them, while others light
classic white moderates love busting out MLK quotes, but so do the racist ones as well. So
candle and turn their grief into
it's
power.
Classic.
They are able to see hope in the darkness. In Scripture, we read about how God created the world from an infinite void, that out of the greatest darkness can come the greatest light. I hope and pray that from the brutal slaying of Israelis by Hamas and the harrowing civilian toll in Gaza, that a two-state solution where Jews and Palestinians can live in peace will prevail. I know I'm not alone in this prayer. There are right now Palestinians in Gaza, some of whom are still pulling dead family members from the rubble, who are defying Hamas and their murderous ideology and calling for...
For the record, let me just explain something. I'm fairly certain, I haven't looked at the latest polls on this, but I'm fairly certain that a Benny Gantz cabinet, a Benny Gantz war cabinet would be infinitely more popular than Benjamin Netanyahu's war cabinet. A Benny Gantz war cabinet that does not have Itamar Ben-Gvir, for example, would still most likely be more popular. So for people who are saying, oh, dude, watch them kick out Netanyahu only to have like Ben-Gvir lead the war cabinet. No, that is not what will happen. But you are also failing to recognize a fundamental fact here. Benny Gantz will be doing the same exact bullshit. That's the point. Like the aesthetic difference between Benny Gantz leading the war cabinet versus Benjamin Netanyahu is just an aesthetic difference. For the people of Gaza, they will experience the same. They will experience the exact same slaughter, just with liberal optics that will be easier to defend, I guess, because Benny Gantz would not be most likely openly contesting and openly shitting on Joe Biden every fucking day. After all, Benny Gantz himself is a war criminal. He ran against Netanyahu back in the day, a couple years prior. I covered it back then because, this is an ongoing issue that I haven't stopped covering. Okay? by talking about his war crimes, like openly.